I'm harvesting some grapes this morning from our larger site, our 6-acre site. This is a variety called Wharton that I got from my dear friend Akiva, a twisted tree. It's like a Concord grape, but a little bit more rich and maybe even a little bit more disease resistant and vigorous. What I want to share in this video is an interesting pairing, something that I've experimented with in the past intentionally. In this case, it happened accidentally. A pairing between this Wharton grape and an autumn olive that's in the landscape, and how extremely functional this combination is. I'd like to share some more about that. So this is a nitrogen-fixing shrub. It provides a huge amount of fertility into the landscape. This could absolutely be an alder, which is a native nitrogen-fixing plant, or a gumi, which is non-native but considered not as expansive. Nitrogen-fixing and fruit-bearing, maybe river locust. But the idea is basically this shrub, the autumn olive in this case, happens to be producing ample amounts of extra nitrogen and fertility. It's also a structural trellis. You can see what I'm starting to do here. So I don't necessarily want the autumn olive dropping seed into the landscape and spreading, but this is a very nice trellis. So not only does it fertilize the grapes that are growing right next to them, but it's offering a physical form that I can cut back. I'm not worried about cutting the autumn olive and hurting them. They're going to be here for a little while. In fact, this is a way to manage those problem plants, if that's what you consider them. What does it look like putting winter squash to the south of a big autumn olive and letting it climb on there, or your cucumber crop being associated with a shrub that you might want to cut back a little bit later on? But you can see the root system of this shrub is right here, pumping nitrogen into the soil, and here's the root system of the grape a few feet over. I didn't plant them with the intent of this grape climbing into there. It just found it and started doing so. And now we can harvest these beautiful grapes that are well off the ground, and with all the cutting back of the shrub around it, more light can get in so they can ripen more evenly. A little hard to see, but the crop is actually pretty immense in there. I already collected about 20 pounds of grapes from this one vine. There's probably another 20 to 30 pounds or so. And part of the harvesting process is to trim back, cut away the autumn olive. The bits that have fruit that's maturing, I can eat those, so I reduce the seed load in the landscape. The parts that have just vigorously grown, I can cut and lay on the ground next to plants that I wish to fertilize. There's a lot of fertility in those leaves to offer the landscape as well. You can see next to this autumn olive to the west of them is a thornless blackberry that's also finding this shrub as a fertilizing trellis. So we can promote the blackberry and cut back the autumn olive to allow more light, but leave it there to be structural. I snipped just what was sticking out over the walkway, which I might ultimately have to cut all this back so it's easier to come through here. And this is the yield of just a few square feet of space. Hey, even got a little bug, little friend. Scoop out. Really beautiful yield from just a few feet of production there. So if the idea of Eleagnis as the host to your cropping vine feels distasteful, here's another one. This is river locust, or Amorpha fruticosa, a nitrogen fixing, quite obviously a pea or a bean family plant, native shrub that could also be holding vines. It's not as strong as Eleagnis. I don't know that I would put a hardy kiwi or a grape on these, but for annual vines, quite reasonable. Or if you wanted to let vines climb up and over a thicket of them, that's great. In our landscape, we've noticed that river locust is actually so aggressively expansive that I'm a little concerned about releasing it into the wild, which is an interesting / ironic idea. We've yet to see a single autumn olive show up in our landscape from seed, but river locust spreads extensively. So I wonder about native grapes on these native shrubs, maybe just expanding and the birds dropping seeds. But a little side adventure, but just some more food for thought. I could also imagine here is an example of a pollarded willow that a grape could be trained right on up this friend and up and into the canopy. And since this willow is under the power lines, I've been pollarding them over the years. Maybe you can do some growth of grapes, and when the crop is way up high there, it's nice and ripe, you can cut the stem that it's being hosted on, which will bring your trellising material right down to you. You harvest your grapes, cut the rest of the branch off, and use that to mulch your grapes or another plant, or whatever vine you happen to be hosting on this pollarded tree. Same thing is possible on a pollarded poplar. Lots of opportunities here, but let me get back to the point. You work with vining crops in your permaculture landscape. Remember, they need something to climb on, and so I've built this wooden trellis, and that's lovely. But to have an ever increasing in size trellis that also provides fertilizing and also can be cut when you want to release your harvest. So I can go through and cut those branches instead of getting a ladder or step stool, cut the autumn olive there, let the grapes come down to me, harvest them, and then chop this up as mulch for somewhere else. There's some additional value in there. So who the characters are that you choose to work with, whether it's a chance nitrogen fixing non-native shrub that supports structurally and can be cut pretty assertively, or your own designed shrub or small tree, and the perennial vine of your choice, that's something to consider. In the comments, please share some shrub or tree hosts that you've worked with to grow vines on, and what sort of management was involved, what were some successes, what were some ridiculous failures. Thanks.